9:06 the time. It's Wake Up Wyoming. My name is Glenn Woods. Thanks for joining me Friday, and I'm certainly glad that you made it through the entire week. Okay, so last I heard, there was a piece of legislation moving through Congress that would sell California for $29.95, and a lot of people are saying that that's too high, and no country wants to buy it. I assumed, Harriet, that legislation came from you.
Well, you have to take Gavin Newsom, too.
That blew the whole deal right there. Harriet Hageman, you're a congresswoman from the state of Wyoming's on the phone with me right now. And I've been watching a lot, Congresswoman, on social media for just to hear what's been going on with the people who are upset about selling land, federal lands. And there seems to be this idea that all federal lands are for sale, for one thing, and people are going to lose all of their rights to hunting and fishing, and not just recreating, farming and ranching and so many other things that we do. And so I just was hoping to get for you some clarification on what exactly would be, if anything, up for sale. And I don't think it's all public lands.
No, it's not even close. There's an incredible amount of misinformation out there about this, and I appreciate the opportunity to set the record straight. So this is on the Senate side. This is a proposal that came out of the Senate Energy and Natural Resource Committee, which is chaired by Senator Mike Lee of Utah. What this provision would do, now keep in mind, this did not come through the House. It has not been voted on yet, and it is not final, but people can go to my Facebook page, and we have additional information. We also have a link to the bill. I would recommend that people read the bill, because once they do, they will understand that the misinformation out there is absolutely off the charts. So what this does is the name of it is Mandatory Disposal of Bureau of Land Management land and National Forest System land for housing. Now, what this relates to is two different agencies, Forest Service lands and BLM lands. Now, it only covers 11 states in the western United States, because we primarily have the federal lands, and it also exempts all federally protected lands. What does that mean? None of this could be sold for the national monuments, the national recreation area, the national wilderness preservation system, national trails, national parks. None of those are included within this bill. The other thing that is excluded is lands that already have leases. So if you've got a grazing lease, if you own a ski area on federal lands, none of those lands, if you've got an oil and gas lease, none of those lands would be subject to this. What this is a very narrow and tailored focus to provide lands, or to make lands available for sale for affordable housing. I'm going to give you two examples of what I'm referring to. For all of your listeners who've been to Las Vegas, they've probably seen that there are quite a few empty lots within Las Vegas. There's a lot of blow dirt, lots of trash on them. I've always wondered, why in the world do they have all these lots here when they're having to build outwards rather than infilling? I've always thought that's strange. A lot of those lots are owned by the BLM. And I only recently found out about this because several folks from the city council in Las Vegas came to visit with me to talk to me about the challenges of having these BLM lands within city limits. The BLM doesn't want those lands. Those are isolated tracts. Nobody's hunting on them. This isn't about trail walking. This isn't about fishing. These are about parcels of property that are isolated and need to be dealt with, and everybody agrees to that. This is the kind of bill that would address those lands. Another example I've been using is Kemmerer. Even before this issue came up, we have been in contact with the mayor of Kemmerer. There's a lot of activity going on over in southwestern Wyoming, and we have a housing shortage. We do not have enough housing for the folks who work in the Kemmerer area to actually live there. And one of the reasons why? Because it's surrounded by BLM lands. So what this bill would do is it would allow the state, the BLM, the local community to engage with each other and to identify, say, a 5-acre parcel or a 10-acre parcel contiguous to Kemmerer that could be used for development of affordable housing. So this isn't the Bridger Teton National Forest, which is crazy. This is not all of the bighorns. These lands that are prioritized are those lands that are nominated by the states or units of local government. So the town of Kimmerer could actually nominate a tract to the BLM and say, we need this for affordable housing. The lands also should be adjacent to existing developed areas, existing infrastructure suitable for residential housing, reduce checkerboard land patterns, or to address isolated tracts. One last thing that a point that I want to make before you and I engage in some questions and answers is, if you look at the Rock Springs RMP, which was issued by the Biden administration with Tracy Stone Manning, now head of the Wilderness Society, the person who's pushing out a lot of the propaganda right now about this. Tracy Stone Manning was the head of the BLM when they did the Rock Springs RMP. Guess how many acres of land she identified in the Rock Springs district for disposal? Right out 48,000. So she's being entirely disingenuous. When she was the head of the BLM, she was advocating for the disposal of federal lands. In fact, right about 1% of the entirety of the Rock Springs district. So it's really funny to me that this woman is out there, screaming hysterically that we're trying to sell off all the lands. When, as the head of the BLM, that's exactly what she was doing. So that's just a really quick summary of what's going on. One other important point. There aren't maps. The purpose of this exercise is to develop the maps and identify those areas that would be subject to the bill. So the maps that people are using have nothing to do with the Mike Lee proposal. Absolutely nothing to do with the Mike Lee proposal. Most of those maps are probably from existing RMPs. And so that is the existing proposal, if you will, by these agencies for disposal of those lands. So with that, just hit me with any questions you have.
Let me do the map thing, because right away I see on social media, whether someone's posting a video or just putting up a post, they use the very maps that you're talking about, and it makes it look like, wow, we're about to sell off pretty much all of our federal lands. And you know that old... God, we're getting old, Harriet. That old song, Pave Paradise and Put Up a Parking Lot. That's an old song now. But still, though, that's what they're thinking is going to happen here. And they're also thinking you're going to go drilling for oil in Yellowstone.
Well, and none of that is true. And that's what I mean. The misinformation about this bill is off the charts. And it's not unintentional. This is an intentional. It's funny to me when you read from these various groups that are screaming and yelling and rending their clothing and jumping up and down and accusing me of selling out Wyoming. Look at the bottom of their email. Look at the bottom of the information they're putting out there, and send us money and send us money. We need to fight this. Fight Harriet Hageman. Fight Mike Lee. Fight the selling off of our federal lands. Send us money. This is all a fundraiser drive based on misinformation. These people are flat lying about what this bill does and what the intent of it is, what it would do. One of the other things, I talked to Mike Lee just earlier this week, and keep in mind, this bill is not final yet. So the bill that is linked to in my Facebook page is not a final version. It's just the version that is out there right now. But my understanding, they're even going to focus on, for BLM lands, they must be within 5 miles of the border of an urban area. And for Forest Service, they'd have to be within 1 mile. So again, you wouldn't even look at a Bridger Teton National Forest. You wouldn't even look at some of these areas that they're identifying, because they would never provide affordable housing. The infrastructure that you would need would be so astronomically expensive that the entire prospect is silly.
Right.
And so again, this is about fundraising for those organizations, and it's about lying about the bill.
Well, and something else I'm hearing you say there, which I hadn't thought about before, your Las Vegas example. So I'd never thought about it before, but there is some BLM land that is landlocked right in the middle of some towns and cities.
That's exactly right, because the cities and towns oftentimes pre-existed the creation of BLM and Forest Service, right?
Right.
So it wouldn't be unusual to have a tract of BLM land next to or within the city limits. Those are the kinds of parcels that we ought to be targeting. For one thing, BLM doesn't want them. They don't provide the kind of amenities that people want or are interested in preserving. But what it does allow us to do is use common sense of ways to manage the resources of the federal government. It would increase revenue to our treasury. It would allow our communities to grow. Nevada is 80% federally owned. Utah is around 60%. One of the things we're always talking about is how do we keep our young people in our communities? How do we create jobs? How do we bring in manufacturing? How do we make sure that the next generation can stay here and thrive? Well, the only way you're going to be able to do it is expand some of these areas. And when the Western United States, that means we're going to have to use common sense in approaching how we manage these lands. None of this is unreasonable. Every person that I've had the chance to talk to, they've responded with, "Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense, but that isn't what I heard."
Right. Okay. Let's go back to where they can get some of this information. You did mention your website.
Go to my Facebook page. And if you'll
okay.
go there, go to my Facebook page and we have a link.
Okay.
I have a brief summary. I also sent out Why It Matters, a Why It Matters email. But we're trying to get people educated. And again, this is a state of flux. I'm not saying that the bill that is linked to right there is the final. In fact, it's not. It's just the only version that I have. And I'm trying to get out there ahead of this so that people have real information rather than propaganda.
Okay. About how much land do you have a number are we talking here?
1%, it's specifically in the bill. The secretary shall select for disposal not less than 0.5% and not more than 0.75%.
Okay.
So less than 1%. We're looking at less than 2 to 3 million total acres in all of the states at issue. And again, the irony is under Tracy Stone Manning, she recommended the disposal of almost 48,000 acres in the Rock Springs district in her RMP just in the last couple of years. So I think that we ought to take the hysteria being propagated by the Wilderness Society and take that with a bit of grain of salt in light of what she's previously done.
Okay, so for more information, they can always go to your Facebook page. If not there, how can they ask questions?
Email us.
Okay.
Email us. Email my account, and we'll respond. And we're getting information out there. And I think we're going to be issuing some editorials as well. Look, another point that needs to be made is I'm not voting on this bill right now. This is in the Senate. If this stays intact and comes over, then we'll have to evaluate it on the House side. But I don't like misinformation, and I don't like when people lie about something as important as the management and future of our federal lands and the future of our communities. If you want to debate the merits of the bill, debate the merits of the bill, but don't stand up your own straw man and then knock him down with a baseball bat.
Right.
That's not fair, and that's not right.
I really appreciate you coming on. As we get closer to this, especially if it comes over to the House, I'd like to have you back on this topic again because it's a hot one.
It's a hot one, and it's because people are trying. These various organizations are fundraising off of this and trying to get people riled up.
Yeah, and it seems to be working so far. Congresswoman, thanks for coming on this morning. I appreciate it.
All right, bye.